The Department of Government Efficiency is setting Washington on fire, and the bureaucrats are running for cover. Today's FISA hearing turned into a total panic fest when multiple DOGE revelations hit simultaneously, and it's clear the deep state is terrified. The bombshells keep dropping. DOGE discovered nearly 4 million Social Security numbers were handed out to non-citizens with no interview, no ID check, and just 5 months after filing asylum claims. Now, these numbers enable immediate access to Medicaid benefits and driver's licenses, all on your dime. Meanwhile, Representative Tim Burchett didn't hold back. He says there is a paper trail going back to D.C. Somebody better be let out of a building in handcuffs. And that's something we all want to see. But the most damning part, DOGE confirmed that families of politicians are profiting from government office leases. That's not oversight. That's organized crime. And while DOGE exposes Washington's paper trail of corruption, Chuck Norris has been exposing something else: the secret to staying strong even as our government grows weaker. Just as DOGE found politicians' families profiting from taxpayer dollars, Chuck discovered 3 hidden factors sabotaging your body as you age. When DOGE revealed 4 million Social Security numbers issued to non-citizens with no verification, Chuck verified something too: that at age 84, he can still kick higher, punch harder, and train longer than men half his age. His energy levels remain strong even when our government institutions are failing. Discover how he does it at chuckdefense.com/next before this information disappears from the internet. It's linked below. Let's jump into this hearing. Dan Goldman, that guy's a real winner, hijacks the FISA hearing to gaslight about DOGE. Western Lensman posting this says surveillance of U.S. citizens pales in comparison to Elon Musk and DOGE getting access to Americans' personal data. Give me a break.
But it pales in comparison to what's going on right now with Americans' privacy, with Americans' national security. We're talking about whether there should be a warrant to search a certain amount of information lawfully collected from foreigners. It's not a broad set of information, and yet some, non-government employee, Elon Musk, is getting access to every single American's personal identification information. His employees, some of whom have already been found to have stolen information from one company to bring to another competitor, are getting access to Americans' personal identification information, whether it be through the Social Security Administration, it be through the Department of Treasury. So it feels like this hearing, while important, is somewhat misguided at this time when the privacy considerations of every American is at risk, rather than a very narrowly tailored set of Americans who are communicating with foreigners who are suspected or potentially suspected of being involved in adversarial actions against the United States.
And that guy is connecting a lot of dots that don't exist, straight up gaslighting everybody. Here's Representative Tim Burchett dropping the hammer with Benny Johnson. Elon Musk and DOGE recently discovered government agency paper trail better lead to arrest. Listen to this.
Members of Congress owning the government fraud.
He told us in the meeting something about everybody.
Elon Musk saying today to Chuck Schumer, I'm starting to think that you're getting a piece of the action with all the government fraud. That couldn't possibly be true, could it? Congressman, you must know something about this. Has Elon discovered something about Chuck Schumer, his family, or corruption?
I'd say he's probably discovered something about everybody. Elon's got that paper trail, and he told us in the meeting, in our little private meeting, there's a paper trail that's going back to Washington, D.C. And dadgummit, somebody better be let out of one of these buildings in handcuffs, because this is real. This is going on. We've seen it all over. We see it in California with some of the elected officials out there. It's been documented in the past, and nobody's willing to say anything about it or do anything about it. Or they get reelected and they get put right back in leadership. And that's why it's so important to have a Justice Department that's not weaponized against the people, but is weaponized against corruption. And we've currently got that. We've just got to hold on to it. And I don't know if we've got the guts or the willpower to do it, because Congress is gutless, Benny. Congress is gutless. We ought to, every day, we ought to be demanding that these bills move forward, and nobody's doing it. Nobody. I mean, a few of us are, but until these committee chairmen move forward with this stuff and we get out of being compromised, I would suggest to you that we will continue on this downhill slide.
We've got a lot of compromise, a lot of Chinese hooks into members of Congress.
I mean, they're in our military installations. They're like, oh, they're flying satellites over. They don't need to fly satellites over. They're running the commissaries. They have access to people's credit cards, social security numbers, all their information. You do not think that Chinese are making files every day on this stuff. This is just, and what the hell? Why are we letting them in these places? Why are we letting them buy property? They're not going to take it from us, Benny. We're just giving it to them. And how we give it to them is greed. And that's why they're so angry about these tariffs, because Congress is so greedy. We have been bought and sold by lobbyists and the national chambers of commerce. They're coming out now against the tariffs. Well, of course they are. They're in bed with the Chinese. They like slave labor overseas. They don't like the fact that 50%, they love the fact that 50% of America is living paycheck to paycheck, and the other half is doing fairly well. That's just wrong, Benny. And it's wrong because Congress sold them out. Lock, stock, and barrel. Over the course of several years, that's what's happened. That's why China's doing what they're doing. That's why this guy is getting by with what he got by. Ukraine almost being able to take out our president because of greed. The profit motive. I was on CNN and they said, well, Congressman, 60% of the money is being spent back in our country. So it justifies killing people because we're getting, our missile defense companies are getting fat, and their lobbyists are contributing heavily to congressmen and senators' campaigns. I mean, is that what they just basically just admitted that.
Oh, man, that's a mouthful. Holy cow. Here's from the DOGE subcommittee. Tim Burchett. Witness confirms that the families of politicians are profiting from leases to the federal government. Why should these people make money off you? Isn't that the definition of corruption? Holy cow. Here's a witness.
Any members of Congress, there's Chair Lady, thank you for indulgence and allowing me to be on this committee. I come in here usually ticked off and I leave in worse condition, so thank you for that. If I ever have a counselor, I'm going to send you the bill. Mr. Hart, do any members of Congress, their spouses, or their immediate family have any property ownership rights to this property or any federal land?
Congressman, I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head.
Okay, do spouses of members of Congress own real property and lease it to the federal government? And how would we find that out? Because I think I know what you're going to say.
I believe the answer to that question is yes.
You do?
I do believe that.
Is there any way we could verify that information?
Well, you go to USA Spending and search, you open the books, our website, and you can look up members' names, you can look up any person's name, and find that information.
All right. I suspect that's being done as I speak.
Holy cow. I never thought about that. That members of Congress, members of our own government, their families leasing property back to the federal government. Oh, thank God for DOGE. My goodness.
Mr. Maroney, how much underutilized space does the federal government have?
Can't say. There's not good data. We just don't have data. There's going to come this summer. Congress has now required it. But prior to this, once you got outside of headquarters, there wasn't measurement of how much the buildings
I hate these studies. Every day we vote on a new study, and I suspect there's some warehouse like in Raiders of the Lost Ark at the end where they're putting this, and our top people are looking at it, and there's these studies are just on these shelves in these vast warehouses. Would you agree with that assumption?
There are a lot of studies.
All right. Remember, you're whatever. All right. How much would the federal government save by allowing unneeded leases to expire?
Federal government spends about $6 billion on leased office space. So depending on how many you let expire, you get substantial savings.
As I said up here, people chastise the thought of making a profit. To me, that's not an evil thing. That allows more people to be employed. It seems that we have forgotten exactly who we work for, and it's the people back home who are struggling. Now, when I was mayor of Knox County, one of the first things I did was I said, get me a list of all the property we own in Knox County. And it was amazing to me. I mean, we had property in neighborhoods. We had some of it was obviously undevelopable. So one was on the corner of a small airport. But it was all over. We had something listed as a park, and it was nothing further from a park. And we ended up selling a lot of this property, and we paid cash for schools, crazy things like that. We didn't stay in debt. And to me, that just seems like the model that the federal government should adopt. We should have a listing of the property, and the people ought to be able to review that and make better assumptions, because I think they're a lot more smarter than we give them credit for. And I suspect that's part of the problem. They don't want to let them look behind the curtain, so to speak. Would you agree with that?
It is important to have that kind of data. There is an inventory that's available online, but there are significant issues with this reliability.
Mr. Hart, would you care to address that?
We would like to enhance the transparency of all of that data. I think it's one of the most important assets that taxpayers should be able to review the cost so that they can make good decisions. And again, the purpose of transparency is to empower taxpayers. Transparency is not a two-way street. The government does not have the right to inspect our checkbook. Taxpayers do have the right to inspect the government's checkbook because it's their money.
Mr. Kendall, would you care to offer your...
I'm all in favor of transparency. No objection.
Wow.
It seems our friends in the media always strive for that, and then and we get pretty gutless up here. So I would hope in the future we would address that. So I'll yield my 49 seconds back.
I mean, you're not going to see this. You're not going to see this on CNN, Fox, MSNBC. You're not going to see this hearing on any channel. Did you even know any of this was going on? What does that tell you? Man, this is amazing stuff here. Here we have, this is 6 hours ago. I hope you're sitting down. Biden issued nearly 4 million Social Security numbers to non-citizens provided just 5 months after filing asylum claims. Amuse posting this. Here's the clip that was on Fox Business.
Their asylum requested Fox to reveal what's really going on. DOGE exposed our immigration asylum disaster. That was the tip of the iceberg. Now, here's the story. DOGE has found that immigration gave a work authorization document to illegals just 5 months after they filed for asylum. That document allowed them to work while they waited to hear whether their asylum request had been accepted or denied. So they could work as an illegal, knowing it would take years before their case was heard. The Immigration Department mailed them a Social Security number. No interview, no proof of identity. Just put it in the mail. Here's your number. In 2021, DOGE says 270,000 new aliens were issued Social Security numbers, 590,000 in 2022, 964,000 in 2023, and 2.1 million in 24, right before Biden left office. DOGE also discovered that 1.3 million aliens are now receiving Medicaid. Millions received driver's licenses, some registered to vote, and DOGE says some actually did vote. Try and square that against Democrat claims that Musk is destroying Social Security and cutting Medicaid. He's not destroying. He's weeding out people who don't qualify. Who is really guilty of misinformation in this case? It is not Elon Musk. Fox to reveal.
Yeah, and that's why they're going after him so hard. Here's more. This was 9 hours ago. Supreme Court rules the DOGE and Trump administration can fire probationary workers. Another win for DOGE and President Trump.
This time, there's some breaking news that hit that Donald Trump, President Trump, the Trump administration has just won another Supreme Court case against these rogue activist judges. This time, they affirm his authority to fire probationary workers. So this affects like 16,000 different firings that have happened that were held up in the courts. So we've got Mike Davis, Article 3 Project, joining us later. This is just stringing together common sense Article 2 powers of the presidency with the authority to actually run the country as the founders saw fit. They saw an energetic executive that was able to move quickly and respond to crises and not always be held up by the whims of the courts or the legislature. So there are obviously places in the Constitution that and authorities that are vested in the president. And then
so President Trump scoring a huge win. Probationary employees of the government on the chopping block. Here is Trump's secretary, Treasury Secretary, breaking his silence on the fake news lies about Elon Musk and DOGE, talking with Tucker Carlson.
So do you think after 4 years we will see an actual net reduction in government spending thanks to DOGE?
Inflation adjusted, yes.
Huh. How long do you think Elon's in for?
I think that Elon, that day to day, I don't know, but I think his imprint is going to be with us a long time. And I think that the mainstream media has tried to demonize DOGE and all the folks who work with him. And I tell you, we have a couple at Treasury, a couple at IRS. They're Treasury employees who I hired, I interviewed, and I'll tell you, there's this one fellow, Tom Krause. He was on TV with Brett Baer the other night, and Tom's incredible. He's done $100 billion of tech mergers. With my investment business, I would have hired him. I don't think I could have afforded him. And he is doing this for the good of his country. He came in without touching any of the payment systems, that the mistruths that were spread by the Washington Post. He has analyzed the system, and within 6 weeks, pointed at all the vulnerabilities. There's a young man named Sam Kirkos who was on Laura Ingraham with me the other night, and that was my idea. It's like, let's bring him out of the shadows and let's make this demonization stop. And like this young man, other than the fact he only owns one pair of pants, which he likes telling everyone, you or I would be happy if our daughter brought him home. He's a patriot. He's working hard for the country, and he's analytical. And the things that he's seen at the IRS, just in their tech systems, and that's all he does. Elon has a shirt that he wears under his jacket, and he'll flash it every once in a while, and it says tech support. And that's what we're getting. We've got a blockbuster-style government, and we should be on Netflix. We're hailing cabs, and we're in an Uber economy. Why can't the government be in the gig economy? Not hard.
Wow. Breaking the fake news, bringing the people out of the shadows. Here we have, speaking of DOGE, this was posted 24 hours ago. NBC going inside the literal underground mine where a few hundred federal employees process all retirement paperwork for the entire federal government, stored in 26,000 filing cabinets. DOGE is working to make it more modern, efficient, and cost-effective. Now, we've played a clip of this before, but now we have another look. Let's take a look.
Employees buried deep inside this mine in western Pennsylvania is a little-known government office that handles a critical mission for the federal workforce, now set to be overhauled by the Department of Government Efficiency.
From the mine entrance, which they call the portal, we took some golf carts a few hundred feet down into the mine. You can feel the air change when you get inside, and you can see this is all just roughly cut out of the limestone. This was once a limestone mine. And down here, this is where we find the OPM office, where a few hundred federal employees process all retirement paperwork paperwork for the entire federal government.
It's an analog operation, all done on paper. It can take months for the Office of Personnel Management to process a case, potentially delaying retiree benefits.
The facility has literally miles of files, some 26,000 filing cabinets filled with retirement paperwork, some of them stacked 10 high.
Matt McIsaac runs the day-to-day operations inside.
When you look out over all of this, what do you see?
I see people. I see careers. I see service.
What do you mean a mine?
When Elon Musk brought up the mine in an Oval Office appearance back in February as a target ripe for reform, McIsaac agreed.
He's right. We have to improve the way that we do things for federal employees and for the American public.
Buried deep inside this mine in western Pennsylvania.
So it's not just about government waste anymore, Patriots. It's about systematic corruption built into the very institutions meant to serve the American people. When NBC cameras went inside the Federal Retirement Processing Center, they found an underground mine with 26,000 filing cabinets. That's how your retirement is managed in 2025. Meanwhile, politicians' families cash in on government office leases. In just 3 months, DOGE has accomplished what decades of Inspector General reports couldn't, exposing the raw nerve of government corruption. And now the Supreme Court has given them legal backing to fire probationary workers who stand in the way of reform. So the question we should be asking is this: if this much corruption has been exposed in just 3 months, what will we learn in 4 years? Just how deep does this rabbit hole really go? Share your predictions in the comments below. And wear your support for government efficiency with our MAG Avengers t-shirt at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.